I want to welcome everyone today. My name is John Hooms. I'm the CEO and Artistic Director of the Nashville Opera. I want to welcome everyone to the first in a series of HBCU Masterclasses. This is our very first one. We have 8 more this year, pretty much 1 per month on different subjects. We have a couple of terrific teaching artists and some great students, and we're going to discuss different aspects of the business of opera. So first, let me give a couple of announcements and thanks. First of all, I want to say a special thanks to our project partners, Tennessee State University, Dr. Robert Elliott, head of the music department. I want to say thank you to Fisk University, and also a big thank you to the 105 Voices of History Choir, made up of singers from each one of the historically Black colleges and universities in our nation. These masterclasses are made possible by our wonderful sponsors, the National Endowment for the Arts. So we want to thank them. We also want to thank the Opera America Innovation Grant and the Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation. I also want to say a special thanks to Patrick Dailey, who we see on the screen here, who has been our project manager and has helped to coordinate this very large project. So thank you, Patrick. So we have 2 wonderful teaching artists, clinicians with us today. I want to thank you so much for being here with us to be a part of this. I want to do a little introduction of both of them, and then we'll talk a little about auditions. Today's masterclass is about auditioning, which a lot of people find to be a terrifying endeavor. But we're going to talk a little about it, a little of the background, some things hopefully that will help everyone when you head into the auditions. First of all, the first person I want to introduce is Indira Mahajan. Indira is a Marian Anderson award-winning soprano and is in demand by leading opera companies and orchestras worldwide. She is one of the most celebrated interpreters of the role of Bess. Audiences on 5 continents have enjoyed her in more than 120 appearances in Porgy and Bess. Other operatic highlights for her include the title role in Puccini's Madame Butterfly, Suor Angelica, the roles of Musetta and Mimi in La Bohème, the title role in Aida, Violetta in La Traviata, Gilda in Rigoletto, Nedda in Pagliacci, and the title role of Lucia di Lammermoor. She has also been seen on PBS's Live from Lincoln Center in Benjamin Britten's opera Paul Bunyan, and is a soloist at the Richard Tucker Gala at Lincoln Center in New York City. She was born in New York City, where I believe is where she's broadcasting from today, and began her musical studies at the age of 5 as a violinist, starting early. So welcome, Ms. Mahajan. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Our next teaching artist is Mr. Mark Rucker, who is a baritone, who is currently serving as a professor of voice at MSU's College of Music. From the time of his debut as Renato in Un ballo in maschera with Luciano Pavarotti for the Opera Company of Philadelphia, this American baritone has been in demand in opera houses and on concert stages throughout the world. In addition to an active performing career, Mark has been the administrative director for the Martina Arroyo Foundation's celebrated young artist program, Prelude to Performance, since its inception in 2005, and he's been artistic director since 2015. Mark has made his Metropolitan Opera debut as Amonasro in Aida, and has since been heard at the Met in various roles such as Don Carlo in La Forza del Destino, Tonio in I Pagliacci, and as Rigoletto in the Met in the Park series, and he continues to be a part of the Met roster. Among the roles he has sung, the major baritone roles have been Rigoletto, I shall say that Scottish opera, Mark, Nabucco, Un ballo in maschera, La Traviata, Stifilio, Aida, Il Trovatore, Samson and Delilah, and The Flying Dutchman. Mr. Rucker made his Carnegie Hall debut to great acclaim as Don Carlo in La Forza del Destino, and remains very active in concert work as well as opera. So please welcome Mr. Mark Rucker. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
Uh, so I have a couple of very esteemed colleagues, and today we are going to be discussing auditions. And so with that, I have one question to start, and then if anyone has a question or anything they would like to talk about or ask the teaching artist, please do. My first question as far as auditions, and I'm asked this by young artists too, is what do you wear? Because that seems like a simple question, but sometimes it's not. And I've done auditions myself. I do a lot of auditions, and sometimes people don't really wear something that's really appropriate for this type of moment.
Yes.
I'll put it that way. So why don't we start with Indira? Do you have any recommendations on dress for an audition?
Yeah, I do. I think, when I first started auditioning back in the day, things were a lot more formal. And men wore suits and women wore very elegant dresses, and things have relaxed a little bit. I mean, now I think what you really are looking for is sort of an elegant casual. You don't necessarily have to be full pageant in a gown or anything like that, but you want to wear a dress or pants and slacks that are well-fitting, that are not going to be a distraction. I generally think that solid colors work best. And as I said, you don't want to have anything that's too tight or too loose that you're futzing with. I've made that mistake before. So I think really you want to be elegant and neat and clean. You want to have things ironed. And you just want to look put together. You want to put your best foot forward. You don't want to wear shoes that are too high that you've never worn before. That can be very difficult. I always think that you should prepare your clothes the night before, try them on, sing in them, make sure that they're comfortable and elegant, and always get a second opinion. You want makeup, but you don't want to be so overdone, again, that you are distracting, because you really don't want anything to take away from your beautiful singing and your artistry, or wear something that's going to be so constricting that you feel that you cannot move or you cannot take your good breath. So I think the rule of thumb is always a casual elegant now, but not too casual.
Mark, have you comment?
Well, I think she pretty much said it all. I would go as far as to say you should dress well because it's respectful of who you're singing
Yes.
to. You don't want to come in as if you're applying for a job with the New York Knicks. You want to come in as a professional. You only get one shot at this. So if you're wearing something, as she said, that's distracting, it's going to take away from what you do. The biggest thing is that you need to go in and sing well. But the actual attire that you do, I would say a jacket would be a good thing for guys. You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to wear a tie. You wear a turtleneck or something, but be respectful of who you're singing for.
Okay. So I had a question then. I'm not sure what, I know both of you teach as well. If someone, this is for women, but if a woman is a mezzo soprano
Mm-hmm.
and they are going into audition for Cherubino
Mm-hmm.
or Octavian,
Mm-hmm.
what do you advise them as far as wear? Do you advise them to wear trousers? Because it's a
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, don't you think, Mark? I think that a nice suit is very appropriate. I don't, again, not too casual, but a really tailored fitting. And this is where you might want to invest. And you don't have to spend a lot of money, but you want to put in the effort of maybe going to different places and finding a really nice tailored suit that will show you that will be flattering. But I think a suit is really nice. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody, I don't want to move past anybody. Does anyone, any student, did any of you have any questions you'd like to ask at this time? We have plenty of, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it's hard to see in my thing. Go ahead, Elisha.
Hi, my question is towards with the mezzo for pants rolls. So what are some colors with the suits that you would recommend?
You know, there is always the standard black that is always very flattering. I think you might want to go with blue, black, gray, you know, and you can change it up with some really nice accent pieces. I think beautiful accent pieces with a suit, shoes that are not so high, not too high, but you want to keep it. I mean, you're auditioning for a pants roll, but you are a woman, so there's nothing wrong with having that touch of femininity if you'd like. You know, I think that's lovely. Mark, what do you think?
I think that's yeah. You have to, pants roll is a pants roll. It's not that you got to go in looking like, you know, you're a man necessarily, but it's a role that you want to address, and everybody knows that it's a pants role, you know. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mark, with that, while we're talking clothing and stuff, what do you advise your students as far as hair or makeup for an audition, and how glam do you go into an audition?
I think you go in looking nice. I mean, I think you go in with a hair, you know, whatever your hair looks like at the time. I would not go in uncombed. You know, I would go in again with an eye toward what's going to be best for you. You know, I think we're going to be probably talking about photos and things like that, but really, you know, if you've got hair, which many of us don't anymore, but and if you've got a beard, make sure it's trimmed. If you've got, you know, it's just a major thing of looking your best,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but not going haywire of it. I would not necessarily go to, you know, somebody to do a major makeup job on you for an audition. I would make sure that whatever makeup you use is going to be appropriate.
Hmm. Indira, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I think that it's also really important to make sure that your hair is sort of maybe away from your face. You don't want anything coming too much in your face and shadowing. So whether you have locks or whatever your style is, make sure that it's just away from your face so that there's no shadow, because sometimes there's a distance between you and those that are listening to you sing. And what you don't want is to be so far away and your hair is in your face. It's happened to me, and it creates a shadow when it's not your best foot forward. So you want to make sure that you can see your beautiful face, that again, like what Mark said, that you're not so overdone, but you do want to have something. You want to have a little makeup on. You don't have to look like you are actually on the stage singing the role as if you were on the operatic stage. And so there is sort of your day makeup, your night makeup, or your stage makeup. I don't think it's appropriate to do stage makeup for an audition.
Okay. I think the next thing on my list to mention is and Mark brought it up, kind of the headshots, because everybody needs a headshot of some sort going in. It helps companies remember your picture and who you are. I've seen it where the resume is on one side, the picture is on the other, so it's one thing now. When I started out, which is a long time ago, everything was black and white. I see more and more color shots now. So let's start with Mark. What are your feelings on that, Mark, as far as what do people need nowadays, headshot wise?
I think you need a good headshot. And this is not only just for auditions, it's for if you get a job, you're going to have your headshot things. Now, you're just starting out. I don't think you need to invest $1,000 to go to a professional to have it done. I think we have enough digital technology now that you can do a pretty good headshot yourselves. I wouldn't say turn the camera around, take a selfie, but there's enough digital prowess that people can do that. And And I frankly don't think you should invest in a whole lot of prints. You know, I think you should just keep it as a digital image because most of the times they're going to use that anyway. If you spend thousands of dollars on prints and then the next thing you know you've changed, that's $1,000 you just kind of wasted.
Yes.
So that's my thought on it.
Yeah. Indira.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think, you know, things were different when I first started. And that was a big deal, your headshot. I mean, where you went and the right photographer and all of that. But now I think given technology and how savvy your generation is, I mean, you don't have to spend, as Mark said, a lot of money. Sometimes, and actually I was talking to my agent about this, Peter Ransman. He has a great site. And sometimes when you go on an agent's site, it's actually it's a good idea to do that because then you get to see a variety of pictures. Most of them are in color these days, but there was one artist, just a beautiful outdoor picture, and it wasn't sort of in the studio, but it was a gorgeous picture. And so you can get a friend to maybe take a couple of nice pictures. And I think Mark is right. You know, it's digital now. You've got to send everything, email. So be mindful of that. But I would really suggest finding an artist that you really like, that you admire, look them up on the internet, and then go to their agent's website and get a sense of what people are doing now.
Good. Okay. Patrick, do you have any comment on this too?
Yes, I actually I had a comment, but I also was wanting to get you all's perspective on a couple of things. So backing up a little bit to what to wear. What we're also seeing now in our country, in our world, in our society, and this is something that's wonderful, is, you know, more inclusion of different gender identities and different people and different communities, right? And so we wanting to ensure that everybody has their agency. So, you know, and I think that sometimes in our field, you know, things have a certain way of that they've always been done, but that is rapidly changing with the world around it. So I would love for you both to sort of speak to that in regards to what we wear in auditions, but also kind of going to the headshot piece. You know, I'm glad Mark brought it up. You know, we don't want to, you know, just selfie this. That's not really going to work. Even if you have a good ring light, mine here clearly. But you still want to ensure, like, you know, who you get to ask, or not just your roommate taking the picture, but, you know, the person on campus who is actually a photographer, maybe, right? And I love what Indira brought up of also, you know, looking at the different photos of different artists. That's going to be very key because that'll help, even if there's somebody that you get to do your headshots who may not have done headshots often, you can give them references towards what you're looking for. But I definitely would love you guys to speak to the piece on, you know, dressing in different, you know, different communities and different gender presentations as well.
Do you want to take that out?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so I think, you know, I love the idea that people want to, you know, you have your agency and you do you. Do you elegantly. You still need to show up, whatever is outfit, or regardless of, I think, your identity. You know, there's some basic sort of truths. Just, you have to show up well dressed, put together. And I do think that if you want to present yourself however you want to present yourself, that's most certainly your choice, because things are changing now. And this is such a good point. But I think that the same rules still apply. Show up and sing your best, look your best, however that look, whatever that look is to you. But then here's the flip side. We also have to accept that it may not be everybody's thing. You have to really be honest. And while I would applaud anybody, you know, you want to be sort of honest with who you are and how you want to present. But you have to also understand that this is a job interview. So I would say even err on this, like with all of us, you want to err on the side of maybe still being more conservative. And whatever it is, you don't want to be so distracting that it takes away from your performance. But I think we're living, and I love the question, because this is our reality now. This is very much what we are seeing more and more of. So I say still the same rules still apply.
I think I agree with that. I'm more interested in life than necessarily audition. And what I mean by that is that I believe that your decision to go whatever direction you decided to go is more important than an audition. So if you are singing for a role, now the decision to what to do is more about the role than about where you plan to go sexually. If you're singing for DeLuna and your voice is right for DeLuna, you might want to consider dressing closer to a masculine situation. If, however, you're singing for Butterfly, and you might want to go that direction. But whatever you decide to do, it's called being happy. The thought of going away from where you are and where you want to be is ludicrous to me, because you've got to turn around and look at that same person in the mirror. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I also wanted to add also to that. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Lucia Lucas, and she's the first ever trans singer to headline in the United States. And so I think, again, such a very interesting question, but it really does speak to what we are seeing more of now. And so it's out there, and there are people that are making their careers and making a name for themselves, and they are nonconformist in their appearance, in their choices. So I think you look these people up and read about their journey and find inspiration from others who are doing it too.
Just be comfortable establishing where you are. There's got to be that feeling of that you are confident, that you're going in with this confidence, because not everybody you're going to be singing for is going to be appreciative of that, but who gives a damn?
That's true. I always felt too, Mark, that in an audition, because I've sat at the table for a lot of auditions, is my philosophy is that hearing somebody sing, I'm your biggest champion when you audition. I want you to do well. I want you to do great. I want you to be the undiscovered person I don't know that is just what I'm looking for. I mean, that I approach auditions with a very, very positive way. I want everybody to do their incredible best. And I know some singers feel there's such a, almost get a negative vibe, but we really try not to project that, because that's not the way we feel.
Well, you are blessed. People are blessed for singing for you. I cannot admit that there are a whole lot of other people that feel that way. But again, I'm singing and I'm showing you what I can do. Mm-hmm. If you don't like what you're hearing, that's not my problem. I'm confident in what I do, so I'm going to present what I do. I'm confident the way I look, so I'm going to. Now, if you go in and you're not confident about the way you look, it's going to show. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, this person's not comfortable." We have one transgender young woman here at the school, and I'm telling you, first of all, when I first saw her in a picture, I first saw her as a male. When I saw her later as a female and the way she dressed, I went, "Oh my God, how gorgeous can that be? Uh, she doesn't have the voice yet for it. So that's the consideration. Where is that voice?
I want to, I'll make sure that you all have a chance to ask anything that you wish. Does anybody have any questions or anything you want to ask the panels, our two artists? So I'm not sure if somebody had, okay. Caitlin, yes. Oops, sorry.
In regards to the hair that you guys were talking about, so say if someone has like a 4C or like 4B afro texture, are afros considered professional, like in this kind of, you know, environment, you know, even though that's, you know.
Mr. Rucker is fluffing.
Yes, Mr. Rucker.
That, yes, yes. You know, I mean, I again, it's where your comfort is. You know, if somebody's gonna not hire you because you're wearing an afro, they're looking for an excuse. You know, if you're going and you sing well, they don't care what you've got on. They may ask you to change once you get the job, and then that's your decision to make. But you know, somebody doesn't like you because you have an afro on. They just don't like you. They don't want to say anything else.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And I also think to take into consideration that when you're singing for a role, you're going to be in wig and makeup anyway. So you can show up in your natural hair. I think you should. If that's the way that you feel most comfortable, show up that way. But I think that I'd like to think in this day and age that at this point, our listeners are intelligent enough to know that they're looking for a beautiful voice. They're looking for the voice that can sing the role, knowing that I have had wigs on like most of my career. There are times when I will get to have my hair, use my hair, but most of the time I am wigged. I get there early. I get a very early wig and makeup call. They pin curl my hair. I put the wig cap on, and whatever wig that fits that's the designer's vision. So most of the time, you're going to be a part of someone else's vision anyway.
Very true.
Thank you.
Kaylin, can I ask you something? I don't know about anybody else, but I'm really having a tough time seeing you. And I think part of that is the background you're using.
I'm not sure I can see myself, so.
I mean, it just may be me. I don't know, but it.
Oh, there you go.
There's let's see, Patrick, you have your hand up, I see.
Yeah, I wanted to sort of add on or ask to expound on that in regards to, yes, natural hair. I love that question, Caitlin, but also in regards, and this could also help in headshots as well, you know, what we do about how you at least present your hair in an audition, but even in the headshot. And what was the other thing? And about facial hair, particularly too.
What's that?
But yeah, just looking at like what we do for those of us who have a little something going on. You know, Mark is beard goals at this point, but looking at what do we do with our facial hair? And this even goes into performance too, because sometimes I've even had it a number of times. I've been asked to shave and cut it off, but just for our headshots, for those things like that, and for auditions, facial hair, how we present our hair. I know that was mentioned about having the hair out of the face, but what else can be done for those who have locks or more hair around to make sure that it's more kept?
Well, I think kept is the magic word. Now, I will admit that I was born with this facial hair. And I have never shaved it off for anything. Other people have. I have never any intention to shave it off for whatever role I'm doing. You can be asked to do it, but you know you have to make that decision. But again, it's that whole neatness thing. You know, if you've got locks, make sure they're neat. You know, or trim it. You know, trim beards or that kind of stuff. A lot of the characters that I do it's not really a concern.
Right. Ms. Hinton, I think you had your hand up. I missed you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. So I know both Indira and Mark stated that it's best to check and understand the character so that if it is a pants wearing role that you're auditioning for, it's best to get a good tailored suit that fits you well. Is it appropriate to wear that tailored suit as a female to say any audition, or is it best to just kind of standard go to that gown instead of that suit?
I've worn pantsuits before at an audition, and I wasn't auditioning for a pants role. I've worn, and again, it goes back to sort of just trying to have something that's tailored and sort of elegant with nice accent pieces and looking your best. I don't always wear a dress or a skirt. There are times where maybe you don't want to, you know, or, you know, for many different reasons. But it certainly is appropriate for a woman to show up in a suit, in a lovely, elegant suit, auditioning for a female role.
Yeah, my dresses don't work that well. So.
Yeah. Thank goodness. Mr. Manning, you have your hand up.
So my question goes back to the headshots. So I know you're talking about, you know, hair and all that, you know, to make the headshot look, you know, perfect and all that. But what would you say makes a perfect headshot? Because like I kind of struggle with, you know, the headshots and all that. I would just want to know what makes a headshot, you know, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, you want to start or?
Oh, I was going to let Indira take this one.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know that there really is a perfect headshot, but I will tell you, I think it's always wise to have more than one. So when I first started, I had a headshot where I was wearing something that was a little bit more formal, because again, now it doesn't have to necessarily be full bodied. And again, this depends on what you're auditioning for. Like I know a lot of my colleagues that are in theater and print work and stage work, they have headshots where they have different pictures of themselves on one page. And so that's a possibility depending on what you're auditioning for. A lot of times, especially with print work, but I think it's best to have more than one, especially if, I mean, again, I don't want anyone to spend a lot of money, and I don't really think that you need to, but I had one that was a little bit more formal and one that was a little bit more casual, both elegant, but different looks. And I think that there's nothing wrong with going back and forth with those. It really helps if you can maybe either speak with an agent or manager or your teacher to get a second opinion about maybe the company that you're auditioning for and the role that you're auditioning for. And then you can choose which of your headshot might be more appropriate for the particular role that you're going out for.
Absolutely. I'm gonna address this in another way. In some ways, I'm going to address this as a artistic director of a young artist program. What she said is absolutely right. Everything she says is absolutely right. The only thing I'm going to tell you is make sure it looks like you.
Yes.
You know, I can't tell you how many times that we've had people come in, we see their photograph, we go, oh, that's a nice photograph. And they come in and they're completely different. And you have to kind of go, hey, excuse me, did you invite you to come? You know, what happened? You know, and it is not that they look terrible. It's just that they just look different because they've gotten somebody to do their makeup, and it just looks like somebody else.
Yes.
It's so glamorous that they forget to be honest about it. So, just make sure it looks like you.
I love that. That's such a good point, because in the day and age, and so we didn't have this when I first got my headshots done, but in this day and age where everything is so photoshopped and you don't know who is going to show up, and you can do it yourself. You can take like 10 pounds off of your face and add all kinds of, with all of these apps. And then, but Mark is absolutely right. So you do this and you have this glam, fabulous shot, and then you walk in and you don't look that way. So I do think that it's really important that there's integrity. Just show up with your picture. Again, a beautiful shot, but it should look like you. It should represent who you are. And I don't think that we should go all the way over with all of this photoshopping and all of this extra that we're doing that we can do. Just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should do it.
No, that's very true. Patrick, go ahead.
If I may, just speaking from experience, can give it a little anecdote, because I'm still technically a young artist, but I remember when I was in grad school, I had these great headshots, and it was like everybody loved it. It was like this great smile that I took in the freezing cold in Boston. Well, that was also, a few years ago. I was skinnier, I had hair, I had less facial hair. There was a lot of things happening that are different. And so to that point, you want to make sure that you keep the headshot sort of up to date as you grow, as you change. So there's no shame in having the body that you have. We just want to see you. They want to see you when you walk in the room.
Yeah.
But that is a good point. I wanted to just kind of throw that as like something like we see, just because like people saw it as like, that's a great headshot. And then they would look at me. I just remember that. They were like, now that's a great headshot. This isn't you. That's a great headshot. So just knowing that literally does happen. But another point I wanted to kind of ask as we're, we talked about what to wear. We talked about, what the headshot is. Now, what is it like to be in the room? Like, what do we do? We're getting in the room. Just even simply, what is that like? Simply just a basic going into the room with an audition.
Well, and how do you, I'll put it this way. I agree with Indira very much that an audition is a job interview and you want to make a great impression. And I, as Mark said, I look for confidence in people that come in, and they come in with purpose and they sing. But do Indira, Mark, do you have any advice on just, I call it how to come in the room?
Yes.
I've had plenty of auditions where the singer comes in, they don't say a word, and suddenly they start singing.
Yes.
Yes. And so I don't know what you advise, people with that.
So I would say that you come in the room. When you come in the room, that's when your audition starts. It's not when you start singing. When you walk in the room is the beginning of the impression that you're going to make. So when you come in, I think you should come in a very sort of positive light. If you can, smile. When you announce your piece, speak clearly, because some of you may have names like I do that are not easy to pronounce, or they're not familiar with it. So you want to speak clearly. I always think it's a very good idea to try and to smile, to be warm when you walk into a room, and be personable. I think auditions are nerve-wracking. I really do. And there are some people who love auditions. Once in a while, I feel like really good about an audition, but there are times when I have been so nervous. The hardest thing is not to let those nerves convey like on your face, where you look like a deer in headlights, or you're so frightened that you don't make eye contact, that you're looking down when you walk in, or you're still trying to fix your clothes when you're walking in. It really does start when you walk in the room. And so the hardest thing is to sort of maybe not let the nerves show on your face, and take your deep breath and smile, and you can be nervous on the inside, but no one has to see it. Because again, as John said, they're rooting for you most of the time. When you have sort of, you know, decent people that you're singing for, they want you to do your best. They really do.
I think you have to, again, you have to come in with the confidence that you're prepared. I can't say how much I can feel about preparation. You know, if you've done your homework, if you've gotten the 5 areas that you have, if they're the best you can do, you come in, you're going to do this thing. Some people are not interested in what you have to say. I mean, they're just not. They're and they've heard 500 singers before you walked in the building. You know, but you want to be the one that they remember. And so, yes, absolutely. You don't want to look like you're a grump. You don't want to stand there and go, "Oh, I'm going to sing now," and you know, screw these people. You know, you don't want to do that. But you do want to have the feeling that I am here to do a job. I'm here to tell you and so to show you what I can do. This is my 5 to 10 minutes worth of time to do it in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically what I think about it. You do make I will say one thing. One guy came in, we were auditioning, I can't remember what the opera was. He came in and for a person, all the women that were on the panel just said, "Oh my God, what a gorgeous human being this is." And oh my God. And I'm saying to you, he went from looking like Tonio Banderas to looking like the Elephant Man when he sang. So don't be so caught up in that. Just go in and do your job. Do what you're going to do. You're going to sing great.
Yeah, I agree that the confidence is so important, to try and convey confidence. And that really is sort of like the ongoing, like, how do you convey confidence? And that's why I think it's really important to have audition workshops, prep it. Maybe, you know, hopefully at school or with your studio or a group of friends that you can get together, and you rehearse, you practice your auditions, because that's part of it. Part of being confident is doing something over and over again. Part of being confident is the preparation that you put in, and how to audition, actually walking in, announcing your piece and singing. I would say get as much experience singing in public as you can. Singing in, whether it's, you know, concert or church or school, you know, but I think experience, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. But yes, I like what Mark said, is sort of that confidence.
I should also say that I think that if you have problems, personal problems, you need to leave them at the door. And it's hard to do sometimes if you've got some emotional troubles going on. If they're that bad, then you ought to cancel the audition. But if you can make that leave you for 10, 15 minutes, it's like going on stage sometimes. I mean, obviously, we go on stage and we're not always happy. You know, we're not always in certain moods. But your audition is your chance and your time. So just get there and do that.
Yes.
Ms. Rainbow, you had your hand up.
Yes, hello. I would like to, if it's okay, to get a little bit off subject, if that's fine. Okay, great. So one of my questions is, what type of income can you expect in this field? And will there be enough work? And would I have to travel outside the country to make a successful living in this industry or in the opera world?
Who would like to talk?
So, while we would all like to make,
I think I froze.
a great income, am I frozen? Okay. While we would like to make a great income, you really can't go into this for the money. Because sometimes it's feast or famine. There are times when you can get a lot of work and make a significant salary, and there are other times when you don't. So honestly, I can't really answer your question for a number of reasons. The business is really changing quite a bit. There are not as many operas going up right now as there used to be, aside from the pandemic. There are a lot of, there are just not as many productions as before. Again, I really don't know. I think it's an individual thing. It's based on your talent. It is based on your repertoire. There are a lot of factors in this. Yeah, I do think that it can be very lucrative to go to Europe, to sing in Europe, because there are more houses, there may be more opportunity. But in terms of like what you can expect to make, I really can't answer that anymore. I don't know, Mark, maybe that you have a better sense of this than I do, because I just think that this business is really changing. And right now, as I said, there are not as many opportunities, but I still think that I think it's possible. I will say this, it is possible to make a living singing, but that is contingent upon several factors.
I think you're absolutely right. I was doing a masterclass one time someplace, and a kid about, must have been 8 or 9 years old. He came up to me and he said, "Can you make a living doing that?" Because my name wasn't Michael Jordan.
Right.
Now, if the only thing you're concerned about is making a dollar, find something else to do. Because it's too hard. If that's the only criteria. Now, you can make a living. Nobody on this planet can tell you for sure that that's going to happen. You know, anybody that's telling you yes for sure you're going to have a major career and that is just flat out lying. Nobody knows that for anybody. I think it's more of endurance.
Yes.
You know, if perseverance. I can remember starting out in my career, and because of the repertoire I sang, you know, you've got a company that's doing Rigoletto. Well, you know, how many times do they want to hire somebody that's never done the part? You know,
Right.
paying thousands and thousands of dollars to put a production on. They're not looking necessarily for the person that never done it. So it took me a while just to get even started doing that. But as far as monetarily goes, you're always going to be disappointed if money is the total criteria behind this. If you want to make, say, can you make a living doing it? Yes, but what is that living? What does that mean? You know, does that mean I've got 2 Rolls Royces or I got a Yugo? You know, one or the other is still life. But my biggest thing is I have a family who I adore. My wife is my best friend. And I wouldn't do anything without her. Anybody that knows me, knows this business, knows her. So my life is, how happy is she? And if I can make enough money to make that happen, great. If I can make enough money to make my life mean something positive, great.
Yeah.
But you are going to be concerned, obviously. Look, if you got to pay the bill, and the thing is to pay the bill, I've had jobs where I didn't do singing to pay those bills.
Yes.
You know, I was a limo driver. I did a video store. You know, you don't have video stores anymore, do they? No. but I did all the things I had to do while I was making my career to make it happen. The last thing you want to do, I will say this, is to depend on your voice at an early age to have a career. You know, you just want to take your time doing this. Anyway, I've enough of that sermon.
Yeah. That's a good point too, because it's an expensive career. So this is what you also have to keep in mind. Lessons are expensive. Coachings are expensive. Getting these headshots together and getting the things that you need, like the clothing and all of that, it costs money. You may need to supplement yourself doing something else for a while, or throughout for a long while. When I first started working, I remember making my debut at New York City Opera, and I had my first rehearsal on my lunch hour when I was working an office job. I was getting my hustle on, like so many of us have had to do until you don't have to do it anymore. And that's a fact, that's reality, and especially in the times that we're living in right now. You're going to have to possibly do something else for a while to supplement your income, to be able to pay your rent. You don't want to live with like 25 roommates. I mean, it happens, but I mean, you really need to probably have some skill in another area for a bit. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you shouldn't feel ashamed if you're not able to make money as a musician right out the gate. It takes a while.
If I may kind of pop in here, because I thank you for that question, Anna, because I think that also gives us a lot of context into what this is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
As Mark was saying, this is a job interview, but unlike any other job, if you are interviewing for IBM, Google, and such, that's going to pretty much be your set salary. You have ways to go up. You can get with a particular company, and that's just the rate that they're doing for artists or that role or that thing at that time. And you have to understand also the thing that's different too in this industry is that it used to be you could have like longer periods of time in preparation for shows. You could have a month or so. I've seen companies truncate that thing down to 2 weeks, so
Yes.
they're not having to do the same sort of expenses.
Yes.
And so that also affects, what you're taking home, as well as the things that she brought up of the lessons, the clothes, the coachings, because coachings are key. Again, going back to Mark's point of preparation, but then on top of that, just having to live, right? And so there is a place of hustle. And I will say too, the coachings and lessons are expensive, but that also depends on the region and where you are. So, so we're here in Nashville. You're fortunate. So like while you're in school, like do everything and be up under all these people who are willing to do everything for you as much as possible. But we're here in Nashville. And so there are coaches here who are very affordable, at least, and would be doggone cheap compared to New York rates. Like people, if I tell them how much I pay for certain things, they're like flipping out like, are you serious? Yeah, but that's also different because of the region. It also depends on who the coaches and some of the teachers and stuff also have different types of jobs that can sustain them. You have to remember that as your teachers, we're fortunate to be at universities that we have something pretty steady, but some teachers are just individual teachers. And so this is what they do. So you want to be respectful of that across the board. But to kind of aid us back as well as a question, we had Walter Swan from Elizabeth City State watching, Elizabeth City State University, and asked in this same sort of vein, how does an aspiring artist go about looking for, seeking, chasing an agent and representation? And I would even add, when would be the best time to start doing that?
So I signed with my first agent when I graduated from school after I did my master's, and then I went on and did a 2-year artist diploma. So, and I'd done young artist programs in the summer. So I had a certain amount of education and experience in the young artist program. I was fortunate enough to go to school in New York City, and I know that this is not the case for so many of us, but when you do these performances, a lot of agents and managers will go to those performances to see them, to see young aspiring talent and all that. But I would say what helped a lot was the young artist programs, the connections that I made there, speaking with teachers about when it was time, reaching out to agents. You can do that on your own. I mean, you can send your picture and your resume, send emails, and reach out and find out when they're hearing people. But you also need to do it when you're ready. Like, you can't just start singing for agents when you know like one aria. You really have to be prepared. Have your 5 to 7, 8 arias ready, having sung for people already, like your teachers and your coaches. Maybe do a couple of young artist programs so that you can show them that you are at a level that is competitive. Because see, that's really another issue, is getting yourself prepared enough to be competitive. Because agents need to make money off of your performances. So if you can't make money for them, they're not going to sign you. So you need to be ready to perform, and you need to have your materials, and I just think you need to be ready. You can't just go out as soon as you finish your undergraduate and expect that you're going to get top agencies unless you are ridiculously talented, and it's possible.
I think that's true. I will go one little step away from some of that. Is the biggest thing is being ready, being prepared, but also having something for them to look at. Something, if you've got, I sang for the Hooterville High School Choir, and that's your biggest thing in singing, don't send that to an agent. They're not going to, because most agents nowadays especially are not looking to develop a career. They're looking to develop money. They're looking to get you major work. They don't want to work that hard. So if you say, well, listen, I sang at my father's sister's brother's bar mitzvah, they don't care. So you're wasting money doing all that. It's how to get an agent. You get a job. How to get a job? You get an agent. It's one of the trickiest things that people are going to ever have to deal with. Sometimes I think competitions work very well. That's how I got my first agent, was with a competition. I did the thing called the G.B. Dailey Awards in 1850, whatever that was. And I didn't win. I got 4th place, which meant basically thank you for coming. But the girl who won was named Susan Dunn. And Susan Dunn was a fantastic soprano. Went back and told her agent about me. And her agent sent me a thing and said, hey, I'm interested. Okay, fine. You don't want it to be your first time contacting an agent again when you don't have anything to show them. I hate to say it like that, but you really don't want to waste your time with that.
Yeah. So you need experience. You've got to get some experience. Try to do as many productions as you can, even if it's in school or outside of school. Try to get into young artist programs. But again, it is experience, and you need to sort of show them that you can go out in the real world and get a job and get hired, because that's what they want to see.
Now, you could possibly have somebody like a Mr. Holmes on your side who knows these people, who has to work with them all the time. If he has confidence in you, then maybe he might say, well, let me make a couple of phone calls for you. That's a possibility. If you have nobody on your side, contacting the agent is, you might as well take a dart and throw it into the canyon and hope you find it again.
Mr. Beatty, I think you had a question.
Yes, I did. I wanted to ask a question concerning pre-screening and preparation for that. As far as the video, for most opera companies, I know, you may have to send in a video before you actually have your in-person audition. So can you guys give me some feedback or some insight on that?
Thanks. I think that that's really the way things are going right now, quite frankly. I think that more people are expecting and wanting to hear video auditions than in-person auditions. I was just talking to Peter Ransman, who's my manager, just about this very same thing, that companies are not because again of the loss of income for so many companies, they're not spending the money to travel to New York or these major cities to audition people anymore. So in-person auditions right now, you don't have as many. So I think that the time and the resource should also be spent in preparing, and this is really important right now, in your videos. You must put your best foot forward and make a video of a few arias. You don't have to have, 8 right away, but at least get like 2 or 3 going. Start the ball rolling with your video. And you don't necessarily have to have all the bells and whistles, the fancy equipment to make a good quality video. Most people these days are making videos with their iPhones. But what you will need is a good tripod so that it's not shaking. Get a good tripod. I mean, I would love to give you some tips on how to make a good video, but this is really, I think, the way of the future. This is what's happening right now. People want to see what you look like, and they're not going to travel. They're not going to spend the thousands and thousands of dollars to bring a whole team to New York, to spend money on hotels and all of that to hear singers. So this is really the way that it's going now. So I would really encourage you all to make audition videos and be prepared to send them out. And again, there are ways in which to do that. You can get some really great ideas, but it's also like, I do think that you can do it yourself now. I have invested, and probably Mark also, in equipment, but you really don't need to do that now. I mean, and no one's really expecting that of young artists anyway. It's a lot of money, but I think you can go on Amazon and get a really good tripod, use your iPhone or borrow somebody's iPhone, because I think the quality is terrific. And invest in that, because that really, it's a good question, and that's the way to go right now.
The one thing I would add to that, you remember when we talked about the headshot, that it should look like you? The video should sound like you. There have been many times we've had people come in after sending in a pre-screened audition, and they sound like Giarov. They sound like Luciano Pavarotti, because they have dubbed this thing so much with technology that they sound, first of all, like they're singing at the Met in that acoustics. You need to keep away from anything that's that kind of thing, manufactured sounds, because the minute you walk in to sing that audition after having that screening accepted will be 5 seconds later as you walk out. You be honest about everything. When you put on your resume, just be honest about it. Sing the best you can and show what you can do. Sing that video in, just make sure it's a good video. Don't stand in your room, in the dorm, make a video. Give yourself some space to do it. But other than that, you don't need to go to a studio to do it.
That's right.
But it just needs to sound like you.
And that is the way things are going. I have been to New York every year, usually in November, for auditions for I can't tell you how long. We're not going this year.
No. Well,
one, it's expensive, but the second is you can't.
Yes, that's right. You can't.
But so we're going to be doing seeing a lot of videos, people, especially young artists.
Yeah.
I see that coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Does anybody have any other question? Okay. McCarthy, where are you?
Yes.
There you are. Go ahead, please.
I also wanted to ask a question. I know during these times it's very strange because we're in the middle of a pandemic, but what do you suggest for young artists who are trying to really build up their resume for agents and companies, you know, especially during this time with pre-screening videos? Like, what do you suggest us as far as building up endurance?
I'll let you take that.
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by endurance.
Like during these times, it's very hard for people to really, you know, go out and I don't want to say continue being motivated, but
Yeah.
a lot of things are being, you know, shut down and really process are being, you know, really slow.
Well, look, we are all in uncharted water here. I mean, there is nothing normal about what we're going through right now. Companies that are hiring on faith. You know, young artist programs that are taking on faith that something's going to change. You know, we all have to have that kind of faith that we will all get through this at some point. As far as your resume goes, I'm going to talk as a young artist administrator. I don't look for you to have a whole lot.
Right.
I mean, you're in school. You know, do I think you're going to be, you know, performing at the Met next? Probably not. So the worst thing you can do is pad it. You know, I'm a firm believer in just being honest. You know, if you've got arias, great. If you've got a role that you know, great. Put that down. If you've worked with certain conductors, put that down. If you've certain directors, put that down. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. It's probably my lawyer saying I've been fired. If you've got, uh, uh, if you have sung a Messiah, you know, put that down. You know, put anything down that you think is important. Like I said, don't put down, you know, that I sang for Twinkle Opera and
Twinkle,
don't
twinkle.
create names of stuff. You know, we've had people do it. You know, I sang for the Escamillo Opera of Tuscaloosa, and you kind of know where the hell is that? You know, it's too easy in this day and age to figure out that somebody's not telling the truth. You know, I had one guy say to me he had sung in Rome, and it turns out it was Rome, New York. You know, so biggest thing is nobody is. I mean, how old are you now?
18.
You're 18.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not expecting you to have an enormous resume that's going to scream miles. We're expecting you're going to be a talented young man, and we're going to be interested in that. So that's my.
But I would add on also during this time, and that's a good question because it's hard to get the experience. It's hard to make those connections and to sing for people. But this is now the time, and so many of us are doing this. Take advantage of learning music. Take advantage of this time because no one's doing anything. So it's not as if like the whole world is moving forward and you are stuck here and you don't get to move forward too. Everyone has had to stop. So the question is, how do I make the best of this moment? Take advantage of all of the operas that companies are streaming for free on YouTube. Take advantage of all of these amazing opera, and not just operas, music theater, so many great productions that, I mean, and houses that, you know, are super expensive. And now you get to sort of go to the opera or go to the theater for free. So I would say take advantage of this time, learn some new repertoire, ask your teacher about some things that, you know, pieces that you can be learning. And, you know, every week you can watch a new production. So this is the time when I think that you hone in on your skill and get the, and get the experience of live theater in your dorm room or in your home. And this is a chance when you get to go to the theater every week, 3 times a week if you want to, and be inspired by other performers, which will inspire you. You know, as you're saying that, how do I get inspired, or how do I sort of keep the momentum going? Find that for yourself. Find artists, find productions that inspire you. And it's available now, all for free. And there are a lot of apps, by the way, when you don't have a lot of money, that have backing tracks that teach you how to learn music, that play your notes for you, that are like sort of teachable apps. And, you know, and I'm happy to help if you don't know what they are. Get my email address, you know, from Patrick, and write me and reach out to me, and I can help you in any way to provide some of these resources for you. But use this time now, especially when you don't have a lot of money and it's hard to sort of work because of the pandemic. Take advantage of this technology.
One other thing I'd like to add is this was incredibly important for me when I was coming up. If you're looking for some place to get you more up and get you more excited about what's going on, look to somebody like Mr. Dailey. You know, you have people that are around you that are supporting you. Being in a university or being in a college at this point is probably the best thing that you could ever have.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the opportunity to keep learning, you know. And if I had a teacher like Mr. Dailey, I'd probably be really happy right now because I get to bug him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the languages, you could work on languages. You know, Americans tend to be at a little bit of a disadvantage with languages because, well, where we are. We're arguing about doing Spanish. You know, so work on languages, work on your music, and then she said, and listen to a lot of people.
Yes, I agree. Listen to a lot of singers now, and think about putting together a platform for yourself, a website. You don't have to spend a lot of money on that either. You know, you can, there are platforms like Square, what is it called? A Squarespace and Wix. Do it yourself. You don't have to spend a lot of money. And this is, again, another way, especially if you're thinking about doing things, not just with opera, but with theater or with musical theater. But, you know, use this time to develop new skill. Come out of this better, with more music and with maybe with a new skill.
I think I have 2 people with their hands up. I think Ms. Stone was first, and then Ms. Rainbow, I'll call on you. Go ahead, Ms. Stone.
Okay. My question is with auditions, like if we, you know, in faith that we will go back to some type of normal, but with conventional auditioning and finding auditions, when is it too much for say a young artist when it concerning vocal health and also mental health? Because sometimes some people's days are full of auditioning and it can be very exhausting. So when is it too much for anybody, whether if it's a veteran or a young artist?
Should I take
I'm not sure I understand the question because I'm an idiot. So, can you be a little bit clearer about what you're asking?
Yes, so concerning auditions, 'cause sometimes it can weigh just preparation and even confidence rather. It can take a toll on people's mental health and also vocal health, like when it comes to singing a lot. So when is it too much for an artist when it comes
Yeah,
to
yeah,
auditioning a lot?
yeah,
Yeah, if that makes more sense.
yes.
Right. Indira, you want to go for this?
Sure. I mean, I understand that question in that, especially around audition season, it's very easy to oversing, to have too many places to sing, too many holiday concerts, You have your juries coming up, then you have this audition and that audition, and you have to be very careful. So what I would say is, first of all, it's very easy to get overwhelmed, especially during certain times of the year. Pace yourself. You can't, everything that glitters isn't gold. You don't have to be in everything, and you don't have to sing for everything. So you decide when your schedule is getting full, and by the way, your throat starts hurting, that might be an indication that you need to kind of back off a little bit. Maybe it's too much singing, maybe not practice as much. You just, at that particular time, you might just have to go on a bit of a vocal rest. But what you don't want to do is over sing to the point where you're not singing well. Because that's happened to me too, where you are either you have many performances or you have many auditions. I remember when the audition season, there would be so many auditions, and sometimes you would have several in a day, and then turn around and have some more the next day. That's really taxing. And I learned with experience that you just have to say no. Sometimes maturity is learning to say, I can't.
Ms. Towns, I think I missed you a little earlier. Do you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to know what were some audition fees and expenses, and also what would you say the top 3 things are for you to be expected in an audition as a young artist? What is expected in an audition, or what is it that judges are really looking for from you?
Do you want to take that?
Well, what are they looking for? They're looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for your talent. They're looking, as John said, for you to be the best. Because, it's all about us as administrators. Because if we can say we found the next Leontine Price, that's good for us. So they're looking for you to be the best you can. I'm not sure necessarily how to answer the rest of that.
I can address the audition fees and all of that. So aside from the fact that right now you won't have to pay anything because no one's auditioning, but when the time comes, generally you will have to pay for your pianist. Depending on where that is, that can be anywhere from like $35 to $45 for that audition. And sometimes if that pianist is playing for more than one person, you can get a bit of a discount. Maybe you can only, maybe it'll be 20 or 25 or 35. It depends, on where you are and who you're getting to play for you. Oftentimes companies will provide that for a small fee. So sometimes the small fee, if the company provides maybe $10, $20, sometimes you have to also pay for the space. There was a time when companies would come in and they took care of the venue, the space where you were auditioning, and they would sometimes provide a pianist. I always like to bring my own because this person just knew me very well. It was somebody that knew my repertoire, that knew, and just knew me, so I felt really comfortable. And that's part of the confidence, is when you know who's playing for you, that helps. But you'll oftentimes just have your pianist fee, of course, your transportation to get there, and maybe you'll have to pitch in or split, whether it's $10, $15 for the space. Most of the time you don't, but that is a fee that sometimes you are expected to have to pay.
Yeah, I agree. There's some other considerations financially that sometimes you have to deal with, sometimes you don't. Sometimes most young artist programs will charge you a application fee.
Yeah.
They can vary widely. I think our application fee was like $40, but that's also including the accompanist. But some people, they're more money and they don't. Now, if you bring your own accompanist in, that's on you. I'm not paying for that. But that's, those kinds of fees can creep up. The biggest thing is to do your homework. Is when you're going to do one, find out. Find out if they charge fees. It's the same thing as getting an agent. Find out that agent charges fees, you know, and find out what those fees are. You do
That's
not want
right.
to be surprised when it starts coming to dollars.
That's such a good point, because sometimes an agent will hear you, but it's really called a consultation, and they're assessing you. They will help to give you some feedback about where you are at this particular stage in your life. They will tell you to the best of their knowledge what they think that you should do. They may offer some repertoire for you to look at. They may ask you to come back in about a year, 6 months. But generally consultations are there's a fee with that. So just because an agent says, oh, sure, I'll hear you. As Mark is saying, you really sort of need to know whether or not you're auditioning for the roster, which means you're auditioning for a position on this agent's roster to be managed by the agent, or are you paying, or are you seeing this agent for a consultation? And if that is the case, there will be a fee involved with that.
Let's see, we have about 10 minutes left, I think. There are 3 people here. I think Ms. Rainbow was the next in line. And Mr. Warner, I will get to you, I
Yes,
promise.
hello
We'll do it.
again.
Yeah, Ms. Rainbow.
My next question is, when I audition for a role, should I have the entire opera learned beforehand? As in like the recitatives, the duets, the acting, and for the role, should that all be learned for that audition so I'm prepared or something?
In a word, no. You're not required to know a whole role before you get up and sing for it. Now, ask me if I think it should be an appropriate role. That's a whole nother ballgame. You know, if you get up and you've got audition material for Zerlina, and then you walk up and say, "Oh, I'm also going to put down that I'm singing Brunhilde," there's a problem, right? So I don't think you can. What am I say about that? If you know the opera, that's great. I wouldn't. No, I'm not necessarily one of these people. I don't believe necessarily you should necessarily waste an enormous amount of time learning an aria for a part that you will probably never do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, in that aspect, I think you should know. You should know what's coming in during the opera. You should know what's going on after the opera. But actually having to know physically the entire score
Yes.
when you get up and do it, I don't think it's necessary.
No. What I tell my students, when you are learning, preparing an aria, and really it's, as Mark said, only the aria is expected of you, but I want to know, and this is good for you to do, the context in which the aria is sung. Know the opera, know what's happening in that scene, what came before that, what comes after that, who is this character. You don't have to know the entire role, and as Mark said, it's not expected of you. But what is expected is that you know what you're saying, what the story is. So watch the opera. And again, it goes back to my point of taking advantage. If you're learning something from, say, Bohème, take advantage of all this free, amazing opera that's on YouTube right now. These full productions from these companies and glorious singers. Watch the entire production. This is the time to take advantage and know the opera. And I also always suggest that people know the history, the time frame in which the opera takes place. Sometimes what I will do is go on Google and search a timeline. Like if an opera, let's just say random, is taking place in 1865. What is happening in America in 1865? And what is happening in Europe, in the world, at that particular time? Because that plays a part in sort of the dynamics, the subtleties of the story. So I always think that it's best to try to do your due diligence and get as much information about that time period and about the opera as you can.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other biggest thing is know what the hell you're singing about.
Yeah.
You know, don't sit there and just say, okay, well, I think it's about this or I think it's about that. And don't depend on your score to translate it. You know, you say something, please tell me what you're singing about. They say, well, let me get my score. Well, that just means you don't know. You have to read it. So, and believe me, people that know opera will know if you don't understand what you're singing.
Yes.
You know, I
That's
can't
right.
tell you how important that is.
That's right. And you don't have to speak the language fluently, but you should really have a sense of, a literal translation is great. I mean, and again, there are a lot of resources for a literal translation. So it's again, it's all available. You don't have to speak the language fluently to know what you're saying, but you should not be ignorant of the language.
Right.
Right.
I will say that you should take a language.
Yes.
Most schools require you to do it anyway, but I would say please.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Lewis and then Mr. Warner, you'll have the final word. Ms. Lewis, go ahead.
Hi, I wanted to ask, what is the callback process like? What should you expect during callbacks, or what was your experience with different callbacks and with different opera companies?
Can you put your camera down? I'm seeing half your head.
Sorry.
Bravo, Diva. Indira.
So callbacks can be tricky. A callback is generally when you audition for a role, the company is interested in you with maybe a few other singers that they're interested in, and they will call you back to hear you again. And sometimes you can have more than one callback. So a callback is just you coming back, singing over and over again for them to decide whether or not they're going to use you or maybe use somebody else. They're already interested in you. If they called you, they like you. They may want to, it also could be because a colleague that they want to hear you wasn't there that day and they'll be there tomorrow or the next day. So you're getting callbacks sometimes for reasons that you don't even know about. But generally a callback is when they're trying to sort of put together their cast. And they've got a couple people in mind for your role, but they want to maybe hear you sing something else. And so that's what it is. So yeah, you can, most of the time though, you're not getting callbacks. Most of the time you're in or you're out. Because again, it comes down to money. No one has the time or the money to hang out in New York for a week and call you back 3-4 times. That does sometimes happen with more Broadway productions, I think, than with opera. You'll see that more outside of opera, the whole sort of callback thing, or even with young artist programs, you'll see that maybe a little bit more. But generally, like maybe once or twice, and then that's it.
Yeah, I'm going to also say that try not to anticipate what people that are hearing you think of you. You know what they're thinking about when you're singing. There have been times when I mean, it's been a while since I had an audition myself, but I can remember a time when a guy was sitting there while I was singing, typing on his computer, and I thought, what the hell? I mean, not paying any attention to me at all. What's going on here? This is ridiculous. And I kept singing and I kept singing. I said, well, I'm getting out of here as fast as I can. But as soon as I got home, I had the job. He was typing positive stuff. I just realized it was, bad. So you just do your thing, and if they call you back, there's nothing bad about a callback. Aside from you got to pay to get back here to do it again, but I think callbacks are fine. But as Indira said, they're not all that often in opera.
Mr. Warner, you're the final word today.
Yeah, my question was sort of in relation to Alicia's. It was essentially when it starts to get to that point she was talking about where it seems like it's too much, like you are overexerting yourself. How do you, I guess, keep yourself healthy, both vocally and mentally? Any insight on that?
Yeah. I still think that there are just times when you just can't do everything because, here's the thing about the voice. The human voice, unlike any instrument, it's in your body and it's subject to what you're going through. If you have a cold, you may be run down if you're tired, or as Mark was talking about, earlier in the talk, that there are times emotionally when you may be going through something and it affects your instrument. Stress affects your instrument. Sleep affects your instrument, or the lack thereof affects your instrument. So I think if you're feeling bedraggled, stop everything, maybe take the day, get in the bed, rest, because you probably are tired. See how you feel the next day. Of course, you have your vocal health with, with your teas, and don't talk so much. But for the most part, you just have to slow yourself down. You have to be disciplined enough to say no, or I'm under the weather, I'm not feeling well and I need to go home, and maybe I'll see you tomorrow, or I can't do this audition today. You just have to be willing to say no.
I agree. I think what Indira just said about saying no is really important, especially if you're going to do an audition. First of all, if you haven't slept well, and sleeping is going to cause you not to sing well, cancel. If you haven't, if you've got a cold, and the cold is going to be such that it's going to affect your singing, cancel.
Yes.
They do not forget.
They do not forget.
They
do not.
You have to be strong enough to say no, to say, wait a minute, can I sing for you another time?
Yeah.
Because if you get up and you sound like Louis Armstrong singing an opera, that's not going to go well.
That's right. And when I was younger, I used to be afraid to say no. I had, I felt the pressure to say yes to every single thing that came my way. And I didn't have the confidence, because there's a certain kind of confidence that you have to be able to say no. But as Mark said, it's really important. Do not show up if you can't put your best foot forward, because they will remember that, and you may not get a second chance. And I have made almost every mistake, in my 20 years of audition, every mistake under the sun. I have taken auditions when I should have sat them, and you just learn over time. But there were times when I should have stayed home. I should have said no, or I should have just listened to my body. Like, I can't, I'm not well enough. And I've had a company say, I don't know if she's not well, but we don't really want to hear her. If this, and they didn't know that I wasn't well, but it's like, if this is what she sounds like, and they knew, they'd been to my performances, but they thought maybe something had happened, that I lost my voice or something. But the point is, you have to be willing to say no, because a bad audition is worse than no audition, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I would like to say one thing before we finish. My history is dependent on your school. The reason I say that is because my father went to school there, at Tennessee State. And so if it had not been for my father, I wouldn't be here. My father was he had a great bass baritone voice. He was a conductor who actually I did my first Messiah with. And since I didn't have very many low notes at the time, he sang them all. He let me sing everything else. But he learned a lot at the school. And I can't tell you, take the opportunity, since you're at such a prestigious school, to take advantage of your teachers. You got to have somebody you trust. Somebody said, when do I think a good time to go to New York is? And I usually say, when you don't need a teacher. Because there are a lot of people in New York that'll hold up a shingle and say, I'm a teacher, and don't know what the hell they're doing. But they got a New York credit behind them. So you guys have great opportunities where you are, and please keep taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
We as Afro-Americans need every avenue we can make.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we need every positive feeling we can get. And if you've got great teachers, which you do, they're the way forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't listen to everybody. What Mark Russell has to say right now could mean squat to you. You trust the person you're working with, and they'll lead you in the right direction.
That's right. And to piggyback on what Mark said, I mean, my family also, I've been very fortunate to, and as I was telling John this, in my family, we have a lot of graduates from HBCU, starting with my great-great-grandmother, who's at Shaw, North Carolina. And I think that it's very important to take advantage of the community that you have, because it's going to be unlike anything that you will experience, especially when you get out there with opera or regardless of wherever you go. But take advantage of the community and take advantage of being with people that want you to succeed and that will do whatever they can to see that you do, because you don't get this opportunity very often in life.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors, the National Endowment for the Arts and Opera America Innovation Grants and Ann and Gordon Getty Foundation. Thank you again to Indira and Mark for being with us today. It's very appreciated and great. Thank you to everybody who is listening online or watching online. Our next masterclass is Wednesday, October the 14th. We'll be discussing repertory and repertory choices. And thank you so much to everybody. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
As
Thank
Indira said,
you.
please keep in touch. If you have any other questions, please keep in touch.
Yes.
And thank you, Patrick Dailey, for arranging this. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy singing.
This time I'll fight for change. Yes, I'll vote. It starts with me. It starts with me. With you and me. It starts with one heart change.